Right, here we go. So Paul, thanks for joining me here on the first episode of Logically Speaking. So it's a new video series that we're launching where we want to speak to industry experts like yourself, learn a bit more about the industry, the direction things are going, and hopefully give some tips to our network on hiring and also on job seekers as well. So first and foremost, Paul, I'd love for you to tell the audience who you are and kind of introduce yourself.
Well, first I want to say thanks so much for having me. I'm really happy to see that you're doing this. And I think this is just a valuable piece of content to have out in the world. So I'm really excited to see where the series goes. Quick background on my side. I am a head of data science at PlaceIQ, which is a location data as a service company. So it's a really wonderful place to be a data scientist. And sort of my career path that got me here was a PhD in plasma physics, then a stint in management consulting for a while. Then I joined PlaceIQ in 2016. So I've been plugging away at data science and getting comfortable in the company for quite a while now.
Awesome. And I guess in kind of terms of PlaceIQ, bring it back to right at the start of your journey, how did you find your way into data in the first place?
My full journey is maybe a little bit dated now since I got my PhD and finished in 2011. And at that time, when you weren't sure if you wanted to stay in academia and you were looking at other things to do, management consulting was the big draw, and kind of data science was still just starting to become something people knew about. But after my stint in management consulting, I took a break from working in the corporate world, hunted around. I found Insight Data Science actually was a program that I joined for PhDs to just get more familiar with data science and kind of give a stamp of approval to tell companies that they could then hire me as a data scientist. And so coming out of that, I explored around and found PlaceIQ, and it was just a perfect fit.
Smart. And what would you say actually drew you to data science? I know you were doing, I think it was plasma physics as kind of your initial PhD. And what kind of drew you from that to data science?
I mean, I wish that I had like a really creative story to tell. I can tell you that one of the data scientists on my team has more of a kind of a counterterrorism background, and she probably could tell you a much cooler story about what brought her along this way. Mine is that doing data science is very similar to doing plasma physics. I don't have a big reactor to work on anymore that's like an actual machine to run experiments, but pulling in data, understanding what the next experiment I should do based on what I've seen, running into a bunch of brick walls and trying to find new ways to attack a problem. It's all just very similar. And then of course, when you actually do get to things more theoretical, it helps a lot to have had a physics background and seen big scary equations and realize that they aren't that scary once you sit down and look at them. So it seems like a natural fit. And I've often found the challenge I face is when I talk to people who want to get into data science and they're maybe an undergrad or they're just coming from any walk of life, and they ask me like, what's the best way to get the skills as a data scientist that I really need? The easiest one I know of is to get a PhD. And that's an utterly ridiculous and stupid thing to say, because there's no way that spending many years to get a PhD is necessary to become a data scientist. It just is something that happens to help quite a bit for many people who are trying to get the right skill set to be able to do the job.
Yeah, absolutely. I see that kind of top on the list on a lot of job descriptions I read, and it's very much so desirable at the moment. So yeah, I think it's good advice to anyone out there. Bring it back to PlaceIQ then. What does the business do, and I suppose what is your role actually like as a head of data science there?
Our job as a business is to take raw location data collected from cell phones, which just comes in with basically, you can imagine a lat long, a timestamp, maybe a device ID, and turn that into something that'd be useful for a business. Our end output is often what we call like a firehouse of data that is just like events of a device visited this store at this time. And it could also just be this store received this many visits on this day. It turns out that just regular footfall data, you think about it if you're outside the industry, you're like, it must be easy to find out how many people went to a store on a given day, but it's not really a well-solved problem. There's even, there was a time when hedge funds were paying a ton of money for satellite feeds to just count the number of cars that would show up on the parking lot around like a Walmart to understand how much business had been in Walmart. So people will go to great lengths to try to find footfall data. We find it through using the cell phone method. And it turns out that there is a long, complicated process to go from just the raw, that long timestamp device ID to good, clean, this is the number of visits that happened on this day. So the job of data science is to develop that process, refine that process, and find new ways to create new products that could come out of that, or just make the whole flow work better. So our number one thing is data products, and thinking about with the raw data, what we can produce on the other side that'll be useful for someone to actually analyze at a company.
Smart. Yeah, no, it's a fascinating space. And I think it's, how people get in this data, the demand for it is only increasing all the time at the moment. So I think, you and the business seem to be in a pretty good spot right now. And how is it to be a head of data science? I mean, that term is probably pretty scary to some people. What does it mean for you at your place at the moment?
I mean, I'm loving the role. I think that it's really exciting. I think that it could mean, as you said, it could mean a lot of different things at a lot of different companies. And I always try to advise people when they are looking for their first role in data science. It can be tempting to just get excited about any job or any company, but it's good to be picky. This is going to be a big investment in your life. And some of everyone has certain things they're going to be interested in that they're going to want from a company. There's no right or wrong necessarily, but it's good to kind of look into yourself and understand what you're looking for. And there's lots of different spectrums you could look at. One example is you could be really excited about working at a consumer goods company. And it's possible that consumer goods company could have a lot of cool data to work with, but it's also possible that all they really have is like emails and the engagement from those emails. And the work of the data scientist there might be just trying to help their marketing be as targeted as efficient as possible. And it's important for someone looking at a job to think, is that what I'm excited about? Do I want to do that work? Is it more important to work for consumer goods, or do I really care more about the data I'm working with? Place IQ is completely optimized and ideal for being a data scientist who wants to have very large data sets to play with and have a ton of demand for the work that we're doing. I think the most wonderful thing about my job is that we don't have to try to make up things, make up cool data science projects and then convince the company that they should be excited about them, and then try to sell that into the various business lines to get them to use it, because we have so much demand for our time. I spend my time prioritizing the 15 projects that people want us to work on. And then I'll say, all right, these are the top priority ones. These are the mid priority ones. These are the low priority ones. And in reality, we're only gonna have time to work on these 3 top priority ones, which is really exciting, because then when someone on my team finishes a project, immediately someone in the business is ready to be like, yes, we have this, let's go and sprint ahead with it. That just feels very satisfying to see your work put in place and implemented and be having an impact right away.
Absolutely, yeah, I hear that a lot, and I think that's kind of a real bugbear I think of the tech industry as general is thinking it on an assembly line and you're working on a really small part and you're not really seeing the fruition of the work you're doing. So I mean, that's awesome to know that your team can directly see how it's been picked up and where it's going. You mentioned there about prioritizing your work, so I'm interested to know, how do you find the aspect of leading a team and kind of handling that versus your individual contribution work, and how does that kind of stack up for you at the moment?
I mean, that is a wonderful question. I've been following more engineering management leaders and trying to learn the theory that's out there and learn from the people that have done good work. And I've seen that Venn diagram where they have on one part is management, one part is interacting with clients, and one part is individual contributor work. I guess the clients part could also be interacting with management or other exec people. And they have kind of the different bubbles of how that all works. And it just says if you have all 3 of those overlapping, it says, this is a bad idea, don't be doing this. And I think that I'm coming to learn that if you really want to excel at becoming a data science manager and growing, there is a point where you have to start cutting back on your IC work. And it's hard, it's challenging, because it's it is fun. It is very satisfying to get a good result yourself and see something all the way through. But I'm just learning that if I want to have the most impact, it does mean letting go of that more and focusing more on really making sure my team is running as effectively as possible and that we're having the most impact in the organization. I think it's something we all just face eventually.
Yeah, definitely. And it's not an easy skill. And I think making that transition must be pretty challenging. And I'm sure sometimes you want to stay close to the code and you want to, be more involved. But as you said, I think, that's probably the art of good management, I suppose, is knowing how you can take the reins off a bit and lean more on your team.
The positive feedback is as I've taken more of a step back and also just kind of been better about not micromanaging, giving more freedom to my team and let them make mistakes, let them make progress. I see how much faster they've grown as a result. And I'm like, wow, I should have done this way sooner. I should have given them this freedom sooner because they could have been growing so much faster. So the positive reinforcement of stepping back from the IC and doing less of that and giving my team more freedom. And then having myself spend more time on strategic thinking and trying to push the team forward. It seems scary at first, but once you do it for a while and see the positive results, it's very encouraging and lets me know I'm going in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm sure it does, and it's great that you can learn and develop that as you go. So I'll preface this next question with, I know you've got a lot of content out there at the moment, which is great for helping junior data scientists and people who are emerging their career to upskill and kind of learn what they need to know going into interviews and what you potentially look for. But we'll link to that, and I'll share some links on this post. But I suppose if you could summarize, what tips would you give to candidates when looking for new roles in data science? And is there anything we haven't mentioned already you think would be really good for people to know?
I mean, absolutely. So I think that if I had anything that I could teach people looking for a data science role, or something that could open their eyes to see what it's like from my side, I would show them a stack of 20 resumes that I've seen when we open a data science role and how identical they all look. And what we see is, I think that a lot of schools are teaching students that they should put like every machine learning package and every name of every language that they've ever touched. And basically just like, I've done this machine learning project and I've done like this thing in Python and I have these skills in SQL. And it all ends up looking exactly the same. And you look at these resumes and you think, how can I possibly see someone, like, how do I know what someone's actually good at and what I actually need? And the worst part is that the main things that I don't care about seeing on a resume is what machine learning someone has done, whether they're good with Python, and like how skilled they are at SQL, because those are the type of things that a great candidate will pick up on the job almost immediately. And especially in our company, we work in Scala, so your Python skills are only relevant for showing that you know how to code in one language, because we'll have you learn a whole new language. We also do everything in Spark, so it's going to be a whole new thing. So it's really about like I see these lists of things people have done, and they never speak to me because it looks the same resume after resume. But we just had a utterly out of the blue cold email come in from a candidate when we didn't have a position open, just saying, here's my background. I really think you should like give me an internship, even though you don't have anything listed. And what she did was explain what she had done and why, and show that like she didn't just do this machine learning project because it was assigned to her, or because it was like a machine learning project that some boss had given to her, but like she found a machine learning project, she sought it out herself, figured out like where to go with it, why to use the languages she used, why to use the packages she used. Here are some problems that she ran into, and like showed this initiative to actually understand why she did what she did and explain why she did what she did. And that's the thing that I think is super rare. So what I love to see in a resume is not like I used random forest for this reason, but instead to say like I actually understood the problem, realized that random forest was the best approach, even though I tried everything else or had like good reason to do other things. And then I did these things for these reasons, and kind of like clarify that you actually understand what you're doing when you're a candidate, and not just that you have familiarity with some tools.
Yeah, absolutely. And you completely nailed it there. I think that why is critical. And I read through your posting, and that came up time and time again. I think it really does get lost a lot in resumes, and you're spot on there. As a recruiter, obviously look at a lot of data science resumes every day, and it is hard sometimes to distinguish. And you think, well, the experience looks great, but it is just a list of technical expertise. But I think part of this, the series we're doing and speaking to people like yourself is educating people on that and knowing what to look for, and ultimately it's going to help me as well, knowing what you guys are interested in and what's apparent. So yeah, it's really fascinating stuff. And I guess kind of flipping it on the other side, what do you think employers can do to kind of make an interview process great, I suppose, in candidate attraction and experience of an interview as well?
And that is a wonderful question. So from our side, we've been trying to reduce the amount of stress that candidates are put under when they're doing a data science interview, because if you think about the life of a data scientist on my team, they shouldn't be stressed very often. It's like everyone's going to get stressed about something for some reason, but when they're doing their best work, it's not when they're in a stressful, scary environment. It's not going to have them like up and like, I'm not shouting questions at them and making them write stuff on a board like in code. I want them to be calm and like able to do their deepest thinking as much of the day as possible. So we've been trying to reduce the like stressful, scary parts of our interviews. We have, I'd say, like a minimum of coding just to show that someone actually knows how to code at all, because it's I think it'd be a bit of a problem if someone wants to be a data scientist and hasn't even taken interest in coding something. So we want to see some evidence that they're familiar with basic coding. We do ask them, the biggest thing that we're trying to find is like problem solving skills. And so a company that can find a good way to assess the candidate's problem solving skills, again, without having it be this like, how many ping pong balls fit in a plane or something ridiculous like that. I do that from the interview side. I think those are all important steps to respect the candidates and show that you care about them and are going to be a good employer and a good partner with them as time goes on. So it's something we're still working on. I know that when I was first interviewing in 2016, there was a lot of interest in doing the data challenges where someone would take something home and work on it for a while and send it back. We never had as much luck with those when we tried them, and we find that it's also pretty unfair to any candidates who currently have a job to be like, hey, you've got a job, but spend these number of hours in your free time like doing more work. So it's a balance, and I think we're constantly evolving it. And whenever we bring someone on board, we try to get as much feedback as possible on how to make the interview process more respectful and also better evaluative.
Yeah, definitely. And again, from a recruitment perspective, I think there's never been more of a challenging time and a more competitive time for employers at the moment to attract talent. And if you can streamline your recruitment process and your interview stages, you're only going to be in a much better position. And it really is important, I think, at the moment to be doing everything you can to position yourself in the market as the most attractive. And I've seen a lot of candidates who have withdrawn from interview processes or just been involved in ones, and obviously the big tech companies, you hear of 10, 15 stages of interviews going on. And I think it's a real hot point at the moment in the industry. So it's great to know you guys are kind of really thinking about that. And you already preempted my next question, which is in terms of new starters then and new joiners to the business, what do you think is most important, and what steps can you take to make a new starter feel welcome and effectively kind of get up to speed as soon as possible?
So that's sort of the big discussion topic right now with the move to like remote and hybrid work. Is I think we're hearing more and more about people joining a company and just sort of getting lost as they try to do a remote onboarding. So we've been trying to do everything we can with new joiners to keep them connected and keep them involved. And it's a challenge. I think that one option is to try to have more and more like meetings with them between like I'll meet with that person and someone else and try to like schedule meetings to have them having lots of one-on-ones, which can be positive for connection, but it also can be utterly exhausting for a new joiner to be just getting slammed with one after another one-on-ones. I think a lot of it is about having them feel connected, like they have someone who has ownership in what they're doing and ownership in their growth. So those regular checkpoints, getting a lot of feedback. I think especially as a new data scientist, I don't think I've ever actually met a data scientist who didn't have at least some imposter syndrome. So usually people will join and will be like, this person is doing amazing, they're so great. Talk to that person with like, I'm terrible at my job, you guys are gonna fire me any moment. So that's just a natural part of being a good data scientist, I think. It's great if someone doesn't have that. I just don't see it very often. So trying to help those people who are new joining and like give them the feedback like often and on even small things, show them that they are doing great and the mistakes they're making are totally normal. It's very important. But I totally agree. This is an evolving field, and I wish that I had all the answers now, because if I did, I would go off and make my name off of them. But we're trying it out as we can by just trying to stay super engaged, super in contact. And then PlaceIQ actually does have an option to work in an office right now. So people aren't going in every day, but there's a lot of positive feedback from those who are going in and enjoying interacting with each other again.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's such a hot topic at the moment, and every candidate I'm speaking to, it's critical to kind of know their preferences and their feelings, and there's a lot of different factors in play. Just in general, how are you finding the split on your team, and I suppose the desire to get back in an office?
I mean, I would say that relative to the rest of there's obviously our company has very much a tech side and a sales side that you can look as one version of split. And I would say that our data scientists are more on the conservative side and we're coming back to the office. But everyone who does come back in, like once they feel like all right, this is comfortable and safe. And like, especially when the new variant wasn't as raging as it is, they felt more comfortable coming in. The feedback of just remembering what a great experience it is to like work with people. No one has said positive things about like commuting again or some of the more annoying things, but it's been pretty universal that just being able to see your coworkers face to face, being able to hear people talking of things, being able to ask someone a question instead of having to ping them a Slack question. There is a lot of benefit to it. But the way a place like QID is doing it is allowing a lot of flexibility as well. So if you have a week where you just don't want to come to the office, or especially if like right now with COVID, if no one wants to be in the office, there's no pressure. It's a very voluntary. And I think that's been a good low stress way to encourage people to do it, but not make anyone feel obligated. But you're absolutely right. I think there are, anyone who says there's no benefit to an office is being a little bit optimistic about remote work. And anyone who says that remote work can't work, I think is also being pretty pessimistic about that. We're finding that the hybrid is going pretty well.
Yeah, I think overwhelmingly that seems to be the most popular opinion on the many LinkedIn polls and all the rest of the things that you see. And I guess kind of the challenge, and particularly for people like yourself in leading a team, is how do you foster and kind of keep that positive culture within a team. Yeah, I don't know if I'm putting you on the spot there, but what sort of approaches do you take? And I guess to any other leaders of teams out there, what advice would you give them for kind of leading remote-based teams?
I mean, so what has worked the best for me is what I think from the outside sounds like the lamest idea for trying to keep our remote team engaged. But we were remote all through COVID, and our data science team is very collaborative and really thrives on being able to talk to each other and problem solve together. So what we did was have an everyday meeting for at least a half an hour, but as long as we had to go, essentially you call it a stand-up, but we tried to make it not nearly as painful. So there was never any requirement that we all just go around and say what we're talking about. If someone didn't have anything to share that day or that week even, totally fine. If we all got together and we were just like, we don't have anything to discuss about the work we're doing, we would spend the time talking about like a movie or a TV show or something entertaining. The goal was just to have like 30 minutes every day where we got together as a team and just talked about something. No pressure for it to be productive. In fact, the team themselves were like, you know what, I really want to talk about like more technical issues sometime. And so we would like dig deeper on that. And I think that it's been really great for keeping everyone feeling like a team, keeping everyone engaged. And it was the number one thing that the team pushed for. They're like, hey, once we go back to like non-COVID remote that we've been doing or whatever we move on to next, they said that they want that practice to stay. Which I think is, if I heard someone else say like, oh, the solution to having a good team with remote is just to have like a daily 30-minute stand-up, I'd be like, that's the laziest answer I've ever heard. That can't possibly work. But I found that if you do it carefully and you make sure that it's always something good to talk about, and you end the meeting if there's nothing to talk about, and you don't force people to just go in a circle and say something, it can be really engaging and really positive.
Yeah, smart. No, I think there's absolutely no wrong answers to that, are there? And it's whatever works for different teams. And yeah, I think just that, friendly, casual communication sometimes is really overlooked. So yeah, I think that's a valuable tool. Brilliant. Well, that just about wraps it up, to be honest, Paul. I've got one final question for you, which is the $1 million question. And that really is, what is data science to you, if you could summarize?
Oh man, that's an amazing question. I keep trying to, I've mentioned it a few times today. I'm going to tangent first, which is that like our team in data science builds data products, and anyone in my team or who works with my team is like, all right, that makes sense. Like you build data products, I've got that. But pretty much everyone else in the world is like, that is a made up thing. That sounds like digital transformation or anything else that you might see in an airport and have no clue what it means. So I went online and tried to like find all the thought leaders in data science and see like how they define data product. And I read their definitions and I was like, this doesn't make sense to me either. I have no clue how to define data product in a way that doesn't just come back like to saying like, let me just give you some examples and maybe you'll understand it. So I could tell you that the data science at Place IQ is about building data products, but that's just not any useful answer at all. I think that what I would say is in general, data science can mean a wide variety of different things. You could have some data science teams are just like the people who build machine learning models, and that's what they do. And anyone who's using machine learning, that is a data scientist. That's very much not the way I define it at Place IQ. I also heard there was a client who one time said that anyone who uses Excel is a data scientist. I'm like, all right, that's cool. I don't know how that works, but that's a very interesting answer. I would say that at PlaceIQ, the data scientists are the ones who, when given some business objective or some problem, basically use problem solving to look at our data, do some experiments to find out what's actually going on, get some more insight into our data, understand how things work, build some sort of a product, some sort of a tool or some sort of algorithm or pipeline that is going to provide some value and solve that problem, turn it into a POC, get it ready to go, and then work with the engineering team to actually implement it so it becomes something useful and is now an ongoing hardened part of our company. So maybe that's an answer. We'll see. I'm going to work on that one.
No, I mean, I'm sure I could ask that question 100 times, get 100 different answers. So I always think it's worth asking. Yeah, it's been fascinating. Paul, thank you so much. That's been really insightful today. Yeah, I've really appreciated your insights into the world of hiring data scientists, the work at PlaceIQ, and just a bit more about yourself. So thank you so much for your time. And yeah, really looking forward to seeing what you get up to next.